Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Parr, and welcome back to Forgotten Corners. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the cancelled Five Nights of Bloodtime book, titled Five Nights of Bloodtime Abandoned. This was something I was working on in early 2021, but I just kind of ditched it, abandoned, if you will. But even if I did continue working on it, it would have gotten cancelled anyway. It just would have been canceled much sooner because of the Anarchy Webber's inception. Anyway, the task hero also told me that I should mention a little something about this later on, so I'll keep that in mind. Anyway, I realize that audiobooks take too long to read, and this would go longer than 8 minutes, so I'm just going to give you guys a brief summary of it. The story is about a man named Thomas. I don't think there was a last name. And no, it's not Thomas Cox. It begins with Thomas in his dorm room. His roommate Nick comes in and they have a conversation about an abandoned diner somewhere out in the woods. They're very nerdy. They're nerdy fucks. So they're like, why not? Of course, Thomas is hesitant, but he agrees. They go to their local Home Depot. I probably should have just said hardware store, but oh well. They go to Home Depot and pick up a few supplies. They get an axe, a crowbar, and a lot of wood. Mainly just to board themselves off in places to keep them safe. Afterwards, they go into the forest. Their van drives them pretty far, but they have to take the rest of the journey on foot. Anyway, while they're on foot, they hear rustling. Nick, Thomas's friend, doesn't hear it the first time. They wait a bit. This time, there's the rustling. They run away for a bit, then they start walking. They heard more rustling. They look around. In the distance, they see blood. But they didn't know it was blood time. And all they saw was a red bear. Of course, they were creeped out, so they decided to just keep going until they finally reached the diner. The diner in question is where Five Nights of Bloodtime 3 takes place. As they're looking around, they hear rustling and metal footsteps. They look around, and a red bear is there. Obviously, it's blood time. And then there's this big dramatic fight with Bloodtime effectively being broken beyond repair by Nick. Nick then later suggests that they find an area in the diner that doesn't have a ton of holes in it. They chose the security office. They boarded it up and then just decided to just wait around. Eventually, Nick gets a lamp set up in some forest to block off the doorway to prevent anything else like that giant robot from coming after them. Nick then gets a notification on his phone. It was from a random number, but it had a link to an old cartoon. Thomas and Nick watched the video, and it was a cartoon of Bloodtime and Buzz. They find it weird. They later hear more rustling and footsteps. Listen for a bit. And a metal hand comes through the doorway, grabs Nick by his neck. Nick fights for a bit, and then gets dragged off into the night. Thomas is obviously terrified. So he waits in the office for a bit, grows in fear. Checks the time. It's only 4 a.m. That's not optimal. Afterwards, Thomas decides to leave, and he encounters Buzz. He runs away and into the forest. Then eventually, Thomas decides to begin looking around the forest for his friend. Along the way, he finds Michael after. They talk for a bit, and Michael leaves. Tom decides to go back to a diner. No one is there, but he steps in a blood flow, presumably from Nicholas. He decides to... He sees a blood trail and follows it. In the end, he finds a back alley that was gated off, but he just kind of climbed over it. He walked around back and tried to get in, but the door was locked, so he went back out. At this point, he was in a plaza, so obviously someone noticed him walking around the building. A random stranger asked Thomas what the hell he was doing. Thomas answered that he was trying to find his friend. And the stranger says that no one was there. The building, Fun Times Incorporated, had been closed for 3 years. Yes, 3 years. Thomas was surprised, but nonetheless, he decided to just go to the police and file a missing persons report. And then, this part might sound familiar to you, frickin' Marvel nerds or something. I don't know the difference between Marvel and DC, to be honest. Anyway, Thomas is just chilling in class, when suddenly, the building goes on lockdown. All the TVs, which usually display the morning announcements, all go to static. Everyone's panicking. Eventually, their classroom door opens, and Thomas decides to book it. He sees another classroom door opening, but he knows that something is in the school, so he just decides to just ignore it. He kept walking down the hallway until he sees some men trying to open up a gate to a staircase. He decides to help them, and eventually they help get Thomas through the gate, but the gate then suddenly snaps shut. As Thomas is going back up the stairs, he hears screams of pain, bones snapping and blood squirting. He looks back and sees Buzz standing in front of their bodies. Thomas panicked and ran. He eventually hid somewhere and was just there, cowering in fear. If you think I'm gonna go past that, then you're wrong, because that was pretty much just a brief summary of everything I actually got done during my time actually writing the book.
Fazbear Entertainment would like you to put your hands together for the one, the only.
So, in conclusion, this would have sucked. Even if it was released, it likely would have been taken down along with the rest of the original trilogy. After all, it had the Bloodtime branding and was being worked on very close to the time when I was going to lose the rights to the finance of the Bloodtime series.
Well, let's meet the band. My name is Freddy. I'm the singer in the band. Got a hat.
But really, you can probably tell that last part was copied from The Amazing Spider-Man, even though I haven't seen that movie. I don't really think it's copied if I've really seen it, but that's what the Mascaro told me. Anyway, I just like to say that this series is going to be on hold for a little bit, because episode 4 is going to be covering everything, all the cut versions of the Finds of Bloodtime movie. That's what we want episode 4 to cover, but you know, the movie's not going to release for a little while longer. So in the meantime, you can expect us to begin a new series called Art and Inspiration. The first episode should be coming out soon. Anyway, I'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.
I'm a bird who likes